So, is the United States and Iran heading for military conflict? Here with some answers, is Svi Khan, senior Iran analyst with Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and Mike Ansari, director of operations at Mohabbat TV, one of the largest Christian satellite channels broadcasting daily into Iran. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Mr. Khan, let me begin with you. Are we heading for a military showdown with Iran?
I think it's highly unlikely that we are headed towards a military showdown with Iran, notwithstanding the rhetoric. This is an effort, I think, on Iran's part to conduct a form of nuclear blackmail against Europe and the United States. Iran is in a very weak position. They know that they cannot prevail in any conventional military conflict with the United States. That's why we see these sort of incremental, low-grade attacks against oil ships, which are primarily through proxies, which are primarily meant to send a message that they have the ability to act, but they don't really want to, and that's why they're acting through proxies. So I'm not particularly fearful that we're on the scale of on the verge of an attack. And I think what they're trying to do is persuade Europe to try to do more business with Iran in an effort to save the deal, and because they have no real other options to push back against U.S. sanctions.
Yes. Mike, let me go to you. What is Saudi Arabia's role in this conflict?
It's very interesting to see that there's a fine connection between this whole thing. If you really go back, you realize that it's all about money. It's about petroleum money. It's about oil and the prices of oil. We do realize that Iran is controlling the Strait of Hormuz, which produces about 30% of world's crude oil. That means that it's extremely strategic area and a passageway that has a global impact on the global economy, if you would. So Saudi Arabia and Iran have been in this war between Shiites and Sunnis, but it also is a war of controlling the economy of the region and the influence in the region. And we do realize that Saudi Arabia is enjoying a very close relationship with America, and would like to see Iran alienated from that. Iran, on the other hand, is fearful of losing its footing in the regional balance per Shiite interest. And therefore, yes, Saudi Arabia is involved in this entire crisis, if you would, by proxy, because at the end of the day, any hints of a war or crisis or escalation of the situation would have a direct impact on the pockets of people like you and I and other people globally, and how much you're going to pay to fill their gas tanks.
Yeah. Mr. Khan, Iran's supreme leader, as my colleague Dale Hurd mentioned in his piece, has threatened to resume enriching uranium to weapons-grade levels if a deal is not struck very soon. Should we take those threats seriously?
It's important to realize this is far from the first time Iran has made such threats. In fact, throughout the nuclear deal, and even shortly after Trump was elected to office, but before he withdrew, Iran routinely threatened to escalate its nuclear pursuit if the United States were to pursue any kind of countermeasures, such as sanctions against Iran. And several years later, that has not come to pass. In fact, when you look at the sort of response, the partial withdrawal from the nuclear deal that Iran engaged in recent weeks, where they said they would increase their stockpiles of heavy water and uranium, these are actually rather incremental violations, and they're not going. And while they're important and problematic, it's not a sign that they're on the verge of dashing right towards a bomb. So the fact that they're threatening, that they're moving so slowly, that they're taking only small incremental steps, I see as a sign of weakness on the part of Iran. Yeah. They're afraid to withdraw from the deal, and that's why they're making these kinds of threats.
Okay, Mike, last minute here to you, sir. You are in contact with people inside Iran. How does the average Iranian feel about these rising tensions?
An average Iranian is should not be mistaken by the authorities that are running the country of Iran. I want to emphasize again that Iranian people, at least a good 70% of Iranian population, are disillusioned with their current leadership. They feel that Islam is bankrupt. They feel that their country is bankrupt. They're realizing that there is this ongoing dispute between the mullahs and the clergy over political gain and financial interest. Therefore, they have lost their faith in their leadership. As a result, majority of Iranian people are seeking a change. Therefore, my message to our viewership and the American politicians is that when you are going to think about having an action against Iran, be very certain that Iranian people are noble people who do not want to have any conflict. They're very peaceful. They're also very much fed up. Their backs are breaking under the financial pressure in Iran. They cannot trust anybody in the leadership. And in all reality, they're seeking a change. Now, the challenge is this. If we go into a war with Iran, the dilemma is going to be that what's going to happen after the war?
Yep.
What's going to happen to Iran? We do know that Russia and China have shown an interest in Iran
Mike, I'm sorry.
Of its strategic position.
Sorry to break you off there. We do need to run. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the show, guys.